Baer from Convince and Convert, social media strategy and consulting for agencies and corporate clients. The blog is convinceandconvert.com. We have a weekly podcast as well called Social Pros, socialpros.com, where we interview a client-side social media or content marketer. And the book that I co-authored, all about social business, The Now Revolution, 7 Shifts to Make Your Business Faster, Smarter, and More Social. Hopefully you have had a chance to read the book. If not, please do so. I would like to get $1.90 from you, or 25 cents if you buy it on Kindle. Many of you, I know, are already registered for the BOLO conference. Thanks very much to the folks at BOLO and agencyside for producing today's webinar. If you have not signed up for BOLO, please do so. It is, in fact, one of my very favorite events of the year. Every year I will be speaking again at BOLO 2012, as I have many times. Lots of terrific speakers going to be there this year. It's a heck of a lineup. October 7th through the 9th in lovely Scottsdale, Arizona. Great weather, great hotel, great people, all agency principals, folks of that nature and that caliber. Lots of fun. You can save $100 today. Go to bolo2012.com. Put in promotion code JBAER. JBAER. Hey, that's me. Put in that promotion code. Save yourself $100. We will see you in Scottsdale. I certainly hope that you will be there. I want to read you this quote from my friend Paul Reutzer. Wrote this in his book, The Marketing Agency Blueprint. Hybrid agencies will come to rule the marketing world. These emerging leaders are tech-savvy, offer integrated services, hire and retain versatile talent, and profit from diversified revenue streams. They thrive on change and continually apply shifts and advances in technology to strengthen their businesses, evolve their services, and deliver greater value to clients. As change velocity accelerates, traditional agencies unwilling or unable to adapt will quickly be left behind. God bless you, Paul. That is exactly the story that we're going to talk about today. I think there are 4 big trends that are driving change in the agency business. I've been in the agency business now almost 20 years. Convince and Convert is my 5th professional services company that I have either started or managed, so I've seen a lot of things. And sometimes I feel like the agency business has changed more in the last 3 or 4 years than it has in the 17 or 18 years before that. And I think there's 4 big reasons for that. One is measurement. Certainly started with the economy, but also I think a fundamental shift in philosophy that clients want to see the numbers, right? They are not going to take it at face value anymore that this is working. People want to see the math, and this culture of measurement and this culture of accountability is changing the way that agencies have to handle their business. Certainly channel proliferation and fragmentation. I remember when we basically worried about outdoor and print and broadcast and direct mail, and that was pretty much the whole deal. And now there's a new social network about every 5 seconds. We have massively fragmented audiences. It's much harder to reach a lot of people at one time, and that makes it much more complicated for agencies. Of course, technology is changing the agency business with an unbelievable rapidity, not only technology and sort of digital marketing as a platform, but also even using technology to purchase and create and optimize more traditional communications modalities. And then virtual collaboration. You know, I've seen it a lot in my business. Convince and Convert is a virtual company, a virtual consultancy. And even in the last 3 years or so, I see corporate clients and our agency clients much more willing to do business over Skype, to do business over GoToMeeting. This nature of we can get everybody together metaphorically or via the interwebs and still have good outcomes, I think changes the role of the agency to some degree. You don't necessarily need that agency of record to get everybody together and actually sit in the conference room all the time to meet with everybody. It becomes much more fragmented, and I think corporate clients in particular are looking for, look, just give me the best people. I don't necessarily want the biggest agency or an agency of record. I just want the best people working on each part of my business, and being able to collaborate with other agencies and with the client virtually, I think, is driving that as well. So what this means as an agency is that you have to expand your palette and your palette. And what I mean by that is that you have to redefine what it is that you are willing to do as an agency and what it is that you are willing to sell as an agency. You have to create an entirely new menu of services to survive in this new topsy-turvy agency business. The good news is that this adaptation is in fact profitable. If you look at the projections that Forrester has put out there for interactive marketing spend in the US, if you look at the primary categories of interactive marketing, social media, email marketing, mobile, display advertising, and search, they are projecting an increase from $34 billion in 2011 to $76 billion in 2016. So that is an increase for you math majors of $42 billion, or a compounded annual growth rate of 17%. 17% year-over-year growth just for being alive is a pretty good gig for agencies that can sort of get on this social and digital bus in a credible way. Now, I know this is hard, and I know this is scary. We work with agencies all the time on retainer and on projects and on training. And if you are an agency that is primarily traditional and doing legacy services, or even if you're an agency that has only taken initial steps to do more in the social and digital world, this is scary, right? It is a fundamental shift in how you think. It's a fundamental shift in the kind of employees that you need, how you bill clients, how you manage your time, etc. It is scary, but I can tell you that it is in fact possible. Several of our clients have increased their digital revenues by 150% or more since beginning working with us and going through some of these type of services reviews. And I did this for myself first. The last time I merged my company with a more traditional agency, we became very digitally centric and increased digital revenues significantly using a lot of these same techniques. Now, one of the key things you have to do is you have to get current, right? You cannot delegate your agency's future to junior staff. And I suspect we have some agency principals on the webinar here today, and I'm sure we have some junior staff members as well. What I'm telling you is that if you own an agency and your name is on the door, either literally or figuratively, you can't say, we're going to get us some of them kids who understand this here Facebook stuff because they grew up with this stuff, and we'll just let them handle it. We'll just delegate all this digital stuff to other people. You can't do that, right? If you believe in digital and social, and you believe that that is, at least in part, the future of your agency, you cannot take a pass on that individually, right? Everybody in your company needs to at least know enough to be dangerous about social and digital, and certainly somebody who owns the company has to know enough about social and digital to be dangerous. I love this quote from Paul as well. Agencies, particularly their leaders, must have an insatiable appetite for knowledge about the technology industry and a desire to be early adopters of products and services. Agencies that understand technology trends and innovations are able to more readily adapt their own business models, continually increase efficiency and productivity, evolve client campaigns, and make strategic connections of seemingly unrelated information. Bravo, right? That is an absolutely fantastic summary of what needs to happen. And that was from Paul's book, The Marketing Agency Blueprint. If you haven't read that book, I really highly recommend it. You should buy my book and then buy Paul's book. And I bet you Amazon will give you a deal on both. Okay, I broke down these 23 potential services into 9 categories. And I've organized these categories here by what I believe to be their breadth of demand. What I mean by that is every client that you have and every client that you will ever have probably needs SEO. It's a pretty rare client that says, you know what, I don't care about website traffic. They exist, but it's pretty rare. The other thing that almost every client does in some form or fashion is email. Email is almost a universal marketing tactic at this point. Content is third, customer service is fourth, etc. I won't read this whole list for you, but I've organized the services here based on what percentage of overall companies probably need those services today. Now, your results may vary, and in a lot of these things we'll talk about today, you may have a different name, you may disagree about what I list for how much these services cost, etc. I don't really care about that. This isn't about, is Jay right about service number 17? It's about, here is a big group of things that you can and should sell, and that other agencies, including many that I work with, are in fact selling today. What you'll notice is that a lot of these services are not ongoing. A lot of them are projects. A lot of them are get your foot in the door and show the company how smart you are type services, right? And they're not necessarily ongoing retainer-based things. They're projects that let you demonstrate your expertise. For each of the 23 services that we're going to review, I provide a brief overview of what that service includes, and if you have questions about that at some point, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll be happy to help if I can. I talk about typical clients that may be interested in that particular service. Certainly, in some cases, B2B clients are more interested in other types of services than B2C, etc. I talk about price, and I did this on a $1 to $4 scale, sort of like what you would see in Yelp or Hotels.com, or etc. I didn't put actual pricing in there because it varies so much. We have agencies in New York, we have agencies in Fargo, we have agencies in Phoenix, we have agencies all over the country, and they charge different things for the same service based on market demand and competition and how that market works. So I put $1 to $4 so as an equivalent unit of measure, right? If I say it's $4, you're going to charge 4 times more than that, more or less, than something that I put $1 in there, okay? So your unit of measure may be $5,000, your unit of measure may be $10,000. It depends on your market and your overhead and other factors, but that's how I've listed it here. On the difficulty side, I have listed each service from 1 to 5 on the difficulty scale, which means inherently, how hard is this particular service to learn and provide competently, right? If you don't know anything about this particular service today, comparatively speaking, how hard is it to get ramped up with a staff person and be able to actually sell that on the open market? 5 is very difficult. 1 is not difficult at all. Just want to note that. And also competition. Same thing, 1 to 5 scale. And what I've done there is looked at how many other digital agencies, advertising agencies, PR agencies, and either social media or SEO specialist agencies are looking to provide this service today. How universally offered is this particular service across all of the different types of agencies out there? 5 means it's super competitive. 1 means not terribly competitive. Not a lot of agencies are offering that service today. Okay, let's get into it. First service, search engine optimization audit. So on an SEO audit, what you do is take a look at your client's current search effectiveness and compare it to key competitors. How are we doing in search versus the other guys in the category? You're also going to look at technical shortcomings potentially for how their website is set up or their blog. You're going to look at their content mix, how that's working for SEO. Typically, you need to use some third-party software here. In many cases, that software is free, which is nice. And you'll also very much want to look at web analytics. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. So suitable clients here, almost all clients really need SEO and an SEO audit. But what we find is especially B2B companies where search and being found in search can be particularly important. And, of course, e-commerce companies for the same reasons. This is a project. This is you are typically a 30-day to 45-day kind of program. This is $2, so 2 units of measure there. Not terribly difficult to do this. The technical SEO side of it can be a little bit more difficult, but in many cases this can be trained for account staff. So I put a 1 there, and competition of 4. There are lots of agencies trying to do SEO audits. Not all of them are doing well, but many agencies are trying to do it. Second service is keyword analysis, also in the search side of things. And what you do in a keyword analysis is evaluate potential keywords and phrases for relevancy, the competitive landscape, and then existing search and social volume. So how often are people searching for this particular keyword in Google? How often is this particular phrase being chattered about across social media? What you end up with is a list of recommended terms that should be included in the content that is created by you on behalf of the client or by the client themselves. Suitable clients, pretty much everybody needs this. Again, as with the previous service, primarily B2B and e-com have a particular Jones for this kind of a thing. Also a project, relatively affordable and relatively quick, so just $1 there. Difficulty a 2, and competition also a 4. The way this works on the keyword analysis is when you find out who is searching for it across the web and search engines, you can pull that data from Google, Google Insights, Google Trends, Google Keyword Tool. There's a lot of Google-type software that you can use to determine that. On the social media chatter side, you would use some sort of listening and analysis software. Visible Technologies, Radian 6, Sysomos, something of that nature. And then you also want to make sure that the keywords you select have revenue relevance for the client, right? So being number one for something that you don't actually sell is kind of a fool's errand. And being number one for something that nobody searches for is also kind of a fool's errand. The joke in the SEO business is I can guarantee you I can make you number one if I can pick the search term, right? So you really want to balance all three of these categories when you're recommending keywords and phrases to clients. Third service, close to my heart, email audit and a testing plan. Now, as I mentioned, almost every company sends some sort of email. And almost every company sends crappy email because email is no longer exciting. Email is no longer cool. As I said on a webinar yesterday, email is Madonna. It's sort of the original, but now it's sort of broke down and tiresome. And social media is Lady Gaga. It's the hot, new, hip, cool version. But ultimately, Madonna and Lady Gaga are the same thing, the same way that email and social media are largely the same thing. But email does not get any love anymore because it is not modern and cool and new and shiny, and it's not on the cover of Time magazine. But email is by far the most reliable way to communicate to your customers and your prospects, but many, many companies do not put a lot of time into it. So what you would do in this case is analyze historical email performance. So are those emails being delivered? Are they being opened? Are they being clicked on? What happens after people click? Are they engaging in desirable post-click behaviors? You want to track revenue per email if that is calculable in that particular instance. And then you put together an ongoing testing and optimization plan that you and the client can use to build and deliver better email over time. Typically, B2C customers are more interested in email audits because they send email more frequently, right? If you're Zappos and you're sending an email a day or certainly an email a week, this kind of service has more value than if you're a B2B company, which may send one email a month. This is a project. Fees relatively affordable to do the initial audit and the testing plan. Difficulty, a 2. Competition, a 2. Here's a chart that my good friend Chris Sietsema, who works with us and also with the agencyside, put together on the email marketing success factors. You may want to take a peek at this at some point down the road. So if you're looking for better deliverability, those are the things that you try and impact. If you're looking for more opens, if you're looking for more clicks, if you're looking for more revenue from a post-click behavior standpoint, those are the different levers that you can pull and the different knobs that you can fiddle with. The next piece of the email game, Service 4, would be an email lifecycle strategy. And what you're doing there is going beyond the initial audit and optimization plan and really getting into a strategic deliverable that helps the client deliver the right email at the right time to the right audience at the right stage of the buyer's journey. In many cases, this involves some level of technology implementation, creation of custom triggers. So if this particular person is on our email list and they click a link in the email and then they go to this particular page on our website, automatically create another email that says, hey, we really want you to come back and register for the webinar, right? So you have a lot of behavior-driven campaigns and sort of lifecycle management. We use Infusionsoft in our company to do this kind of work. They're an email software company that also does CRM and those kind of things. Really, really interesting and great software. They're a sponsor of our blog as well. Good guys at Infusionsoft. So you have to know something about CRM and databases and campaigns and email deliverability, those kind of things, in order to produce a relevant email lifecycle strategy. Again, as with the prior service, this is going to be more of interest to B2C in most cases, not always. You certainly see email lifecycle programs also with high-value products. So real estate, good users of email lifecycle. Auto is another category where you can really dig into this type of work with a great degree of success. This is a project because it is, in fact, a strategic plan. Fees for this are relatively expensive because it is relatively difficult. You have to know a lot of things about not just marketing, but really technology and how that works and what is possible and different software vendors, etc. And competition for this is relatively light because of that fact, because you can't just take any PR firm off the street and say, make us a sophisticated email lifecycle strategy. It takes a little while to get to that point. Service 5 is to actually execute on email on behalf of the client, email delivery and optimization. In this particular case, you are going to create, send, analyze, and optimize email campaigns. You essentially become the email department for your client. Again, B2C companies most interested in this service because of their sending volume, especially e-commerce companies where the revenue per email metric is meaningful and can have a tremendous impact on overall company profitability. This is a retainer because you are going to work on these emails over the long haul. Sometimes it may be an email a day, it may be an email a week, depends on the volume, of course. Fees this is difficult to calculate because at the per email level, it's quite inexpensive in many cases, probably just $1 sign. But over time, if you're going to send and create a lot of emails, it can add up. This is also an area where you might think about performance pricing. You might think about, okay, look, Mr. Client, you are currently generating X per email on average. This, of course, works better for an e-commerce company. You are generating X per email today. We're going to take this over, and you're going to pay us a flat rate, which is much less than we would normally charge you on retainer, but we want a percentage of the increase in revenue that we deliver to your door. Right? This is a good place to do performance pricing if you have a stomach for it. Difficulty, relatively difficult to do this well. You have to actually really know the email business to be able to make changes and optimize on the fly on a per email basis. This isn't just grab yourself your constant contact account and drop in some graphics and press send. You ideally need to have some specialized expertise to do this, and competition relatively light, again, for that reason. Okay, let's move past email and talk about Service 6, which is persona development. Big fan of personas. My background is in web strategy and usability and those kind of things. I've been working on personas for many, many, many years. And what you do here is take client data, or in some cases, if client demographics and psychographics information is not available about their customers, you conduct your own first-person research. And what you're trying to do is segment key audiences and create archetypes that then are used to focus content, focus your social media efforts, etc. You are essentially creating fake real people that represent different types of key audiences for your client. Most of the folks interested in personas are larger clients who really believe in strategy and research, and companies that sell high-priced kind of things that actually merit that level of analysis and strategy. This is a project. Persona development is, in fact, a freestanding project, although sometimes it is included in other services like content marketing plans or social media strategic plans, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Fees for personas in and of themselves, probably $2 sign, something like that. If you were to go and do a formalized segmentation program, like my friend Susan Baer does at Audience Audit, a formalized segmentation program where you would create personas not based on just demographic research, but actually on buying behavior, where you would actually analyze customer purchase patterns through surveys and things along those lines. It gets a little bit more expensive for those kind of omnibus programs, probably a $3 sign there. Difficulty, probably a 2 to do persona development yourselves. Definitely a 3 or a 4 to do actual purchase-based segmentation. Competition for personas, not huge. Most agencies don't do personas even today, and even those that do typically do not sell them as a freestanding service, so I'll have that as a 2. Here's an example of sort of how it works both at the sketch level and the actual level. At the sketch level, you see multiple personas, and you're going to sketch those out based on, are they a suspect, are they a prospect, are they a lead, are they an opportunity, who are they, what do they do. At the bottom is just a very small excerpt of one that we put together for Monroe Carroll Jr.'s Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt, which is in Nashville, Tennessee. This is a persona of a young couple that we put together for a content marketing strategy, and talks about their digital habits. Do they use tablets? Do they use iPhones? We use that information to then focus content executions to that particular type of audience. Service 7 is a content marketing plan, which I just mentioned. Content marketing plans is where you would take an analysis of current positioning. What sort of messaging is this client using today? What are competitors' positions in the marketplace? You do some keyword analysis, which we talked about as a freestanding service a moment ago. You would also include personas, which we also talked about a moment ago as a potential freestanding service. And you create a unified content plan that includes an editorial calendar. This is a service that is gaining in popularity. We're doing more and more of these all the time as companies decide, yes, not only do we believe we should create content, but we also believe that we should actually know what we're doing when we create content. Larger companies are more interested in this, of course, than smaller companies, because it is a level of strategic thinking that small guys sometimes don't support. Again, higher ticket items are typically better for this type of execution. Is a project, probably $3 signs and fees, relatively expensive because there's quite a bit of labor that goes into doing this well. Probably mid-level difficulty, 3, maybe even a 4, but we put it as a 3 for now. And competition 3, you're starting to see more companies get involved in this, especially on the public relations side. Certainly digital agencies will do this as well, and we're starting to see more PR firms offer content marketing services. Content execution is where you actually put the plan into practice. That would be Service 8. And this is where, sort of like what we talked about with email execution, this is content execution. You're doing ongoing creation of content, and you're going to tell brand stories across multiple channels and modalities. You're going to do blog posts. You're going to make videos. You're going to create ebooks. You're going to conduct events. You're going to design infographics. You're going to host podcasts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's lots of different ways to create content, of course, and your responsibility as the agency is to create content that actually works. And by that, you have to measure results and do ongoing reporting so that you know which type of content and what type of message is actually generating leads or sales or other metrics that you care about. Again, larger clients typically more interested in this and have the budget to support robust content creation, certainly mid-sized and large, I would say. Ongoing retainer, this is generally a monthly fee, and it's at the individual piece level, not terribly difficult or expensive, but as you add it up, it can become somewhat expensive if you were tasked with creating quite a bit of content on a month-to-month basis. And as with the previous one, competition, probably a 3 there, as more and more agencies are starting to get interested in creating content as a service they offer to many of their clients. The 9th service is mobile audit. This certainly is on the right side of history as the percentage of smartphones in the U.S. continues to soar. It's crossed the 50% threshold. So does the particular website for the client and or their email program actually work on a mobile device? Where are they at with mobile? Should they be considering a freestanding mobile app? Should they consider a native app or a web app? There's a lot of issues there, pluses and minuses on both sides. In this particular service, you examine all of the current content and online touch points, including email, and determine whether it is mobile accessible, whether it's a good customer experience or a terrible customer experience, and make some mobile recommendations to the client. Certainly this makes a lot of sense for B2B companies. That may be counterintuitive, but you have higher mobile usage and higher consumption of content via mobile device in B2B than you do for B2C. A mobile audit is a project, relatively straightforward, probably $1 sign there, not terribly difficult to execute. The audit itself is relatively easy. The recommendations are a little bit harder. And so far, we don't find a ton of companies doing these type of mobile audits. I think there's an opportunity for the next 6 to 18 months for many agencies to start offering this. Service 10 is social listening and reputation management. This is where you would use some sort of social listening software. There are a number of different social listening packages out there at all different price points on the spectrum. You would use some sort of software to monitor and analyze social chatter. What's being said about this client? Is it good news? Is it bad news? Who's saying it? Where are they saying it? What kind of words are they using in conjunction with this brand? You might also be frontline responders on behalf of your client and respond to customer inquiries and or triage customer complaints or other commentary and direct it to client personnel for follow-up. So in some cases, the agency finds conversations that should be addressed and then sends those conversations over to client personnel to actually do the follow-up. B2C companies typically have more social chatter about them, just as a general rule, so that may be a more suitable service for them. This is an ongoing retainer, probably $2 signs there. Not terribly difficult. It requires judgment and paying attention more so than it requires tremendous amount of expertise. And competition for this is quite high. We find that agencies of all stripes are starting to get involved, certainly in social listening. Not every agency wants to be on the front lines of reputation management and answering customer questions on Twitter, for example. But in some form or fashion, we find lots of agencies getting involved in this type of service. A somewhat more in-depth version on the social media participation side is community creation and management. This is where your agency would create actual social outposts and communities on behalf of your clients. So this is the whole field of make us a Facebook page. Can you build our LinkedIn company page? Can you set up our YouTube channel? Can you help us with a Pinterest account, etc.? You would then presumably manage those outposts on a day-to-day basis, or at least advise on a day-to-day basis with client personnel actually doing the hands-on keyboard work. You might, in fact, even do the content publishing, so you might, quote-unquote, sort of ghost write their Facebook page, things of that nature. All clients have some level of interest in this today, most definitely B2C companies who typically have greater proliferation of social media outposts. This is an ongoing retainer, not terribly expensive at the individual community level, but if you're going to manage a lot of different social presences for a customer, it can add up. Difficulty, not hard to do it. It's somewhat hard to do it well, and most agencies I find are actually not doing it particularly well. They're certainly not doing it better than the client could do it. It's more expeditious to have the agency do it, but they're not adding a lot of value in many cases, which troubles me. And the competition here is pretty stiff, as you may have discovered. The 12th service is Web Analytics Consulting. This is where you would do a comprehensive review of website data. Oftentimes now it's Google Analytics. Of course, there are other analytics packages out there as well, but Google Analytics, I think, is no question the market leader, and you'll find it most often. You're going to take a deep dive at that data to find behavior patterns and recommend improvements and enhancements to the site, to the sales funnel, to individual pieces of content, to the homepage layout, etc. You're going to examine referring traffic sources. Hey, where's all this traffic coming from? Is it coming from Google? Is it coming from Pinterest? Is it coming from LinkedIn, etc.? Certainly clients that have more website traffic are more interested in this kind of service, and it stands to reason. This is a project not terribly expensive, somewhat difficult to do this well, right? You can do an okay web analytics analysis very, very easy, but to really dig deep and to pull insights out of it that clients can't find themselves actually is relatively difficult and requires some focused expertise. Competition for this, probably mid-range. Certainly digital agencies doing lots of it, of course. Less so, I find, on the advertising and PR side. In some cases, you would then take that web analytics information and roll it into a conversion optimization program. This is where you actually would conduct A/B and multivariate testing to improve conversion rates for online lead forms, for e-commerce checkout, for homepage activities, for email newsletter signups, etc. Typically, this type of conversion optimization is an ongoing retainer where you're working on those metrics over time. You're trying to drive more high-value behavior, and a lot of times you're going to need some sort of software to do that. That's Google Optimizer is one version of that. Unbounce is another software program that's often used for this type of package, and it's going to require you to create some specific content to test different ideas, and it really helps if you have personas already developed when you're working on these kind of conversion optimization retainers. B2B companies in particular like this because it's all about lead gen and getting people who come to the website to do something. Certainly e-commerce companies as well, because it's all about put this sweater in your shopping cart, or buy this wine, or buy this whatever it is that you're selling. As I said, this is probably an ongoing project, or at least it should be in my estimation. You should always be testing. Probably 2 out of 4, not super duper expensive, but requires quite a bit of expertise. It is difficult, perhaps one of the most difficult services that we'll talk about. You have to know a lot about very specific online marketing principles, and luckily not terribly competitive at this point to execute on conversion optimization retainers. Number 14 is social media metrics and dashboards. There's a good long section in my book about this exact topic. This is where you help your client establish relevant, meaningful success metrics for social media, and that requires going well beyond the like, right? Number of Facebook fans is not a relevant, meaningful success metric. If you don't have to run a report to generate it, it's probably not a super high value metric to begin with. So a lot of times what you have to do here is run custom calculations and or tie together multiple data sources, right? So you're much better off knowing what is the impact of Facebook on sales or on lead gen or on customer loyalty or customer retention, and there is no press a button for that, right? You have to actually figure that out. B2C companies more likely candidates for this service because they're typically more active in social in general. In many cases, this is a project to set up the initial metrics dashboard and then a possible retainer to actually create the numbers and populate those metrics, usually on a monthly basis, sometimes more frequently than that. Modestly expensive, relatively difficult to do this well, and competition probably modest at this point. Here's an example of a focused kind of dashboard that has multiple potential success metrics on it. But I'll tell you one thing. It's really all about interpretation, right? You know, reporting numbers is not a high-value service. If you're just going to create fancy charts for clients, I don't think that's a long-term play, because ultimately what you will realize is that your customer has a printer and toner as well. So if you're just printing out reports or reformulating data in Excel, that's not high value. It's all about what do these numbers mean and what behaviors and activities and actions do we need to engage in to make these numbers better next month. That's where the rubber meets the road. It's not the function of creating a report is not high value. It's knowing what the report means and what you should do about it. That's where the high value is, and that's what I hope agencies begin to offer more and more of. Number 15 is social campaigns and promotions. This is kind of the sexy, fun, happening stuff. Creation and execution of social media contests and time-limited programs and, you know, buy this and upload your photo and make us a video and all that kind of shenanigans. Those are the kind of campaigns and promotions and special offers that drive subscription, things like likes and Twitter followers, etc., and or participation in some other larger initiative, typically B2C, typically a project because it is a campaign. These can get pretty expensive depending on how extraordinary you want to be, what kind of software you use to manage it. Wildfire, for example, is one of the most well-known social media promotions companies. There's one in Phoenix that I like quite a bit called Bulbstorm, which does that as well. Difficulty mid-level, partially because if you use legitimate software companies, they have experts on staff that will help your agency do this well. So I'd say it's probably a 3 because you can lean on some software vendor expertise to augment your own. Competition for this getting pretty heavy. Lots of agencies want to do the social campaigns and promotions and get themselves written up in Mashable. So it's getting pretty hot and heavy on that side of the business. One of the things about social media software is really understanding what kind of software do you need. The industry is massively confusing. There's no standardization about terms and technologies and things like that. You have to remember also that while software is important, it's not the whole animal. It's just as much about the wizard as it is about the wand. I actually wrote a blog post that you can find right there, buff.ly, MXE6YY, that talks about the 5 categories of social media software and which type of software you need for which type of client circumstance. Number 16 is social media audits and blueprints. This is similar to the email audit that we talked about earlier, where you will take a look at the current client social outposts. You'll also take a look at competitors and what they're doing well. You'll take a look at best practices in the category and beyond, and you'll put together recommendations for short and mid-term improvements and optimization techniques within the overall social media sphere. So how do we do Facebook better? How do we do YouTube better? How do we do the blog better? All clients need this, and many are interested in it today because we've sort of moved beyond the should we do social media question to the how do we do social media better question, and this answers that. It's a project 2 to 3 on the fees side, difficulty sort of mid-level, and competition mid-level, a 3 now, but I think it's going to be a 4 pretty quickly. The big brother of that is the social media strategic plan, which is where you go beyond sort of an audit and tactical recommendations and really look at how does social media tie to business outcomes. You usually include some of the social media metrics work that I mentioned a moment ago as a freestanding service. You might include personas in this. You might do some analysis of resourcing, what sort of human capital and software might the client need to do social media better. Usually these are 12-month plans, so 12-month strategic roadmaps for a client to sort of go from good to great in social media. Best clients for this service are those that are pretty serious about social. That's usually B2C companies, but not always, but people who are serious enough about social media to spend real dollars on a strategic plan. This strategic plan is a project, relatively expensive to do this well because there's lots of facets to social media, and every new channel you have to come up with a plan for, every new Pinterest or Instagram or Tout or Vidi or Social Cam or whatever the new flavor of the day is, every time you've got to put together a plan for that, it adds complexity and cost to this deliverable. Relatively difficult to do this because you have to really know a lot about how social media works at the business level, not at the social media level. And competition, moderate for this, but again, probably going to become a 4 relatively soon. For example, this is just a simple chart that we pulled out of one of the ones that we've executed recently, which shows an ecosystem diagram for social media. It shows how different channels interrelate and how they promote one another, and then the size of the circle indicates the amount of effort, the relative comparative amount of effort that we recommend this particular client put into each social outpost. Number 18 is influencer ID and outreach. This is the one that's the most similar to classic media relations, so sort of classic PR type services. This is where you find and approach bloggers, customers, fans, online influencers, and you encourage them to write about your client's products or participate or download or sort of hype them up. Usually B2C companies are most interested in this, although we're starting to see a lot more B2B interest in influencer ID and outreach just even in the last 3 to 6 months, I'd say. Typically, these kind of programs start off as an initial project to prove your mettle and then roll into retainers, unless you're a public relations firm, in which case you're probably already doing this as part of your existing retainers. Fees, probably a 2. Difficulty, not terribly difficult, although considering the number of terrible pitches I get every day, maybe it's more difficult than I think. And competition for this is pretty high. There's not a huge barrier to entry here, so I recommend that if you're going to get involved in this in a big way, that you come up with some sort of better mousetrap. Speaking of better mousetraps, 2 of the services that we use for influencer identification that you may not be aware of our Plexus engine, and you may not be aware of this because it's still in beta, but it is amazing. You can go to beta.plexusengine.com to sign up to be notified when it's public, and you can put in any topic, in this case classical music, and in like 2 minutes it will give you an amazing report of all the influencers on Twitter about the term classical music. You can click one button and turn it into a Twitter list. You can click another button and read all the blog posts of all those people. It is very powerful stuff. Other one I love a lot is Group High, which is somewhat similar to a Cision or something like that that you may be familiar with. Group High, very, very in-depth blogger research and blogger ID tool. GroupHigh.com, really like those guys, like what they're doing, powerful stuff, and we use it ourselves. Number 19 is a social media crisis plan. As I always say, this is the most important tactic I hope you never have to use. This is where you put together a customized step-by-step approach for handling a social media crisis for each of your clients. You would include approved messages that legal has already blessed. You would have contact flowcharts. So if this happens, who do we get a hold of in the company, and how do we get a hold of them, and what's their home number? You would have pre-existing pressure relief valves. So perhaps it is a special blog post on the website, sort of the mea culpa blog post. You have that kind of put together so that you can turn it on if a crisis ever occurred, etc. Of course, PR firms better at this inherently because they understand crisis management more so than other types of agencies. Crisis planning, generally speaking, a project, probably 2 on the expense scale. About mid-level difficulty, 3, possibly a 4. We put as a 3. And competition, relatively light at this point. Most agencies do not believe they have the chops to do this credibly, which is good news for those of you who do. Number 20 is search and social advertising. So this is the entire field of search and social advertising, mostly purchased on a pay-per-click basis in many cases. So this is Google ads, it's Bing ads, it's Facebook ads, it's LinkedIn ads, it's YouTube ads. There are others that are available, but those are the sort of the big 5 for now. If you're going to do this well, you really should be doing a lot of testing and optimization. There's a lot of software that can help you do that now, which is terrific. Every client, in theory, could use this because it speaks to website traffic and lead gen and things that many clients are interested in. Usually this is an ongoing retainer-based program. 1 to 2 on the fee level. This is also an area where many agencies oops, there we go, we're back. Where many agencies do this as some sort of piece, right? So it's a percentage of spend or it's performance-based, those kind of things. Difficulty, sort of mid-level, 3, maybe a 4, and competition relatively high, especially on the digital agency side, and this, of course, is kind of their stock and trade. Here's an example of a LinkedIn ad, which doesn't get as much love as it should. A LinkedIn ad that I'm running for my own business for the speaking side of the company, and this LinkedIn ad is only shown to people whose job title is meeting planner on LinkedIn, right? It's a very, very targeted, focused kind of program. Love that kind of stuff. Number 21 is employee social media guidelines. Another one kind of like social media crisis that you sort of have to do at one time just to make sure that you are organized. This is where you would work with HR, legal, marketing, internal communications, those kind of folks to create, propagate, train employees on social media guidelines to make sure the sales guy in Topeka, isn't going to tweet something ridiculous. This is usually a project, of course, to put together the initial guidelines. But I recommend that you sell this as quarterly refresher training. This has happened a lot to me this year where we've talked to clients about this and they say, oh, we've already done social media training for our employees. Oh, really? When was that? 2 years ago. 2 years ago in social media, in terms of best practices and even what technology is available, is a long, long time. So I really recommend that you sell this as an ongoing service and continue to do refresher courses for your clients' employees. Like all training, not massively expensive and not massively hard. Competition for this is relatively robust. There's a lot of people out there who will come in and help companies get their employees sorted out. A lot of different types of agencies can conceivably offer the service, so you should bring a better mousetrap to the table. Number 22, speaking of employees, is internal communities. This is where you would create a strategy and perhaps implementation, execution of an internal social community for employees to collaborate, to knowledge transfer, to innovate. Usually these services and these communities are managed internally after they're built. So you help with the strategy, you help with the initial creation, and the client team manages it after that. This is the kind of thing that would be Salesforce's Chatter, for example, or a Yammer implementation, or an internal blog, something of that nature. Usually this is going to be medium or large clients who have distributed workforces. This internal community planning is a project, usually relatively expensive because you've got a lot of contingencies here. Relatively difficult to execute on this too. You have to know quite a bit about social business in order to make this work, and as a result, competition is not terribly high for this yet. And the last service, number 23 on the countdown, is employee advocacy programs. Every customer is a reporter. That's the truth about social media. But the companion truth is that every employee is in marketing. Even if they're not in marketing, they're in marketing. Because we tell the whole world where we work. We tell them where we work on our LinkedIn profile. We tell them where we work on our Facebook profile, etc. So your employees, or more specifically your clients' employees, are potentially your best advocates, or at least your second best advocates behind your customers. So in this service, you survey employees to find volunteer social advocates, employees that are already socially active, that want to help the brand in social media. And you put together amplification and advocacy programs where you can use employees' social connections to amplify brand awareness in social. Usually medium and large size clients make the most sense for this because they have the most employees. This is usually a project and then potentially a retainer to manage these programs over time. I'm starting to see more of that as well. Relatively difficult to execute and relatively expensive to execute because you've got a lot of work involved to set this up, and it's a lot of back and forth with the client, and very little competition for employee advocacy programs today. I think that will change, and I believe getting employees involved is going to be the next big thing in social. We'll see if I am right. So we talked about 23 services, which is a lot. And I want to caution you to go slow. Do not try and eat all of this sandwich at once. It will kill your agency. What you need to do is pick 4 or 5 of these services that make sense for your clients and your team, that you believe you can do, that you have a passion for. Learn them, even if you have to learn them on yourself or execute for little or no money on behalf of some favorite clients as you cut your teeth. Roll all of those out, those 4 or 5 out in year 1, and then get those conquered, and then roll out another batch in year 2. What happens next? At the conclusion of this webinar, you should grab your calendar and mark it for August 29th, which will be the next webinar that I'm doing in this series. It's called A Guru, or The Gang, evaluating the 4 methods of social media staffing, which is all about how do you bake expertise into your agency about social media. Who do you hire, how do you manage them, etc. As I mentioned, BOLO 2012, October 6th through 8th. Make sure that you sign up there. And if you want these slides, I'm going to make these slides available for download only to people on the webinar. If you go to ar.gy/23services, and that's case sensitive, it's a big S, if you will, please. If you sign up for the One Social Thing, which is our daily email newsletter, which sends you one story every night, the best thing that you should read that day about social media. If you sign up for the One Social Thing by the end of the week, we will send you these slides as a PDF, and you can do with them what you will, and we'll also send you a free bonus as well. So please do that. That would be marvelous. Don't forget, BOLO, early bird rate, save $100. Go to bolo2012.com, put in the code JBaer, and save $100. I am, in fact, Jay Baer from Convince and Convert. Thank you for your kind attention. Always awesome to be with you. We got a couple minutes for questions, and I'm just going to scan through here. And let's see here. Question, how come email audits aren't suitable for B2B? Email audits are inherently suitable for everybody. The reason I said that they were more B2C is that most B2C companies send email more frequently, making an audit more viable and easier for them to pay for. Jay, what are your favorite resources for learning about email marketing? The good news is that almost all the email companies out there, ExactTarget, Silverpop, Responsys, etc., have great resources of their own. Probably my favorite is the Email Experience Council, EEC.org, and EEC has a tremendous library of white papers and email marketing tips and advice. There also is a new book coming out in July or August from my friend Jason Falls and my friend DJ Waldo called The Rebel's Guide to Email Marketing. Go to Amazon and pre-order that as well. In addition to my book and Paul's book, it's going to be really good. I've seen the early draft, Rebel's Guide to Email Marketing. Let's see here. Best reputation monitoring software, in your opinion? I don't know if I would say best because they're all different price points. I like Systemos a lot. I like Radian 6 a lot. On the less expensive side, I like Viral Heat quite a bit. There's lots of different options out there. And let's see here. Several of these services sound really interesting, and I would like to offer them. Good. But I don't have the knowledge and skills yet to do so. So that's the thing. You got to pick the 4 or 5 that you really want to get involved in, and then start finding in-depth conferences that you can attend, other webinars that are specifically about individual of these services. Every single thing that we talked about today has blogs and websites and people who lead in that category. So all the information is out there if you want to pick some of these services and make them your own. I think that's all the time we have for today. Thanks again. I am Jay Baer. Really appreciate everybody hanging in there today, and I will talk to you in August. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter. Get these slides for free, ar.gy/23services with a big S. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.